Welcome, Matt Jardine, author and martial artist. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sue.
So, you have written a book called The Hardest Path, and it's a book about a pilgrimage. Tell us, what was the pilgrimage you went on?
So the pilgrimage is called the Hachi-ju Hachi, which is Japanese for 88, the 88 temple pilgrimage. And it's Japan's kind of version of the Camino. It's Japan's super pilgrimage. Japan is essentially 4 islands: Kyushu, Honshu, Hokkaido, and Shikoku. And it's a circumference around Shikoku, 1,400 kilometers, stopping in at 80, stopping in, sounds like it's something quite casual, but dropping in and doing prayers at 88 of the temples.
How long did it take you to do that pilgrimage?
Well, therein lies the story. It can take months, or some people spread it out over years. So I decided to do it in 30 days, as you do. Thought I would see if I could do 1,400 kilometers in 30 days with no money and no time to do it. Yeah, there was a subtext to that. I wanted to see if you could do wild things with neither the money nor the time. So yeah, 30 days, but sensibly, probably 2 months, 3 months, 3 years, really.
Okay.
Not 30 days.
No, not 30 days. That kind of almost partly answers what my next question was going to be, which is, what inspired you to go? What were some of the reasons behind wanting to go and do this thing?
So, you know the author Paulo Coelho he's the author of The Alchemist. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, his first book actually is called The Pilgrimage, where he did the Camino, the pilgrimage moving from Spain to France. And that fascinated me. That sort of introduced me early doors into the idea of pilgrimage. I've always been a bit of a spiritual seeker. Is that the word you want to use? That'll do for now. But I've always been into that sort of stuff. And then I read that book and I thought, boom, that's it. I'm going to do a pilgrimage. I don't know what it will be. And I've been involved with martial arts and Japanese martial arts for ages. So those two things just went stuck together. Pilgrimage in Japan. 88. I just found out about it. It was one of those, and literally that decision was made in about 24 hours. And it kind of all just came together. That was it. And I was also at that time, I had my children, they're older now, but they were young. And I was at that, this is going to sound awful, right? I'm going to admit that.
Oh, go on, admit something. We do love a good admission.
Being a parent and, that whole day-to-day grind was just horrific. I love them, but the whole, is this it? Do you know what I mean? Going to work, pay the bills, take the kids. There was something in me that felt, for me to be more as an individual and as a parent, I need to find if there's something else going on. And pilgrimage for me at that time, I felt would lead to some answers.
Wow, that's incredible inspiration. And you said you also wanted to do it in a very specific amount of time. So you decided deliberately to put yourself under that kind of pressure.
The daftest thing I've ever done. But here's the thing. I was always hearing around the school playground at that time, people saying, I haven't got, if I had enough time, I would do X, or enough money, I would do Y, right? Always the idea that my life would be better if I had time, money. And I was thinking, so, all right, if time and money are our actual limiters, then life's a pretty poor place to be. And I wondered, there has to be more to that. Are time and money mental barriers, or are they real barriers? So I thought, okay, if I can do something that's pretty extreme with neither enough time or enough money to get through it, right? If that can happen, then I can prove to myself that something is beyond time and money. And I can say to people, that's a human obstacle. That you're in your own way. They're not real things. So part of the narrative was to find out if time and money were real or illusions.
Would it spoil the outcome of the book if I asked you if they are, or shall we save that until people read the book?
You will only find out if you read the book at least 1,000 times. No, the long and short of it, right, is that time and money are in our head. They are human constructs that get in our way because we don't challenge them. Yeah, and they are completely human-made. They don't need to be in our way. And the rest of my kind of life, after the 88. So when did I do that? 2007. So what's that? 13 years ago. So every day since then is kind of applying what I learned there and showing it in the day-to-day world.
Well, you've just shared some of the things that you learned there about time and money. What else did you learn while you were on your pilgrimage?
A couple of things about pilgrimages that, so in a circular pilgrimage, the Buddhists say, because the Buddhist pilgrimage, and you don't have to be Buddhist to walk it, but a lot of the things you'll hear are from kind of Buddhist scripture. In a circular pilgrimage, you are essentially living a whole life in the amount of time it takes to walk. So the macrocosm is shown in the microcosm, right? So the ups and downs are all symbols for your life lived fully. So you get a chance to look at yourself from outside, because when you're walking 1,400 kilometers, well, there's not much to do. It's a bit dull. So all you've got to do is look at the stuff goes through your head thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm this, or I'm a bit angry, or, I'm a bit annoyed today. So you see your whole life in kind of condensed. And one of the things that happens when you walk, and I don't know if it's the act of walk, the jury's still out, whether it's the act of walking or just being alone, but you, from time to time, you drop into a space, like a meditative space, maybe. You're not meaning to, but you drop into a space. Now, here's the thing. In that space, your normal self, if you like, your self that thinks, I haven't got enough time, I haven't got enough money, kind of gives up. And you see a flash of something bigger, right? I don't know what that bigger is. Some people might call it God, or I don't know what it is. But in that bigness, you start to see that you're kind of unlimited, right? And then you think, what do I do with that? What do I do with that unlimited? I can do, one can do anything. And then, so that was one of that's kind of the big picture thing. So then you have to choose, well, what do you do with that? So one of the things I started to do is just silly stuff, thinking, well, if I can do anything, right, then I could part seas and, turn fish into whatever, and you know what I mean? I could do miracles. So I played around with it. On one particular day, I played around with it and started to do things like, so I was walking through a bamboo forest, nowhere near a town. So I'm thinking, right, unlimited, well, hey, we can do whatever. So I think, okay, well, if this works, what's random? What are you not going to find in a Japanese bamboo forest out on Shikoku Island? Oh, strawberry cheesecake. And this is absolutely true. I know, I make this ridiculous request. I want strawberry cheesecake. Forget about it. Come out to this bamboo grove, and I'm in a high street. Okay, cool. The first shop on the corner with the yellow awning. It just stays in my head, this yellow awning. Fine, I look in. There on the window, on one tray, is one slice of strawberry cheesecake. Sue, it's a true story. So I sort of, a little bit of me thinks, okay, something's fishy going on here. Anyway, that whole day I started, because you don't believe it at first, right? You think, oh, well, there's another reason that's happened. Your brain is constantly thinking it's something more than magic, right? So then I started playing with this all day, choosing just random, ridiculous stuff until I stopped doing it because I freaked myself out. It's the truth. Everything kept just boom, 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 coming until I stopped doing it because I was frightened of my own responsibility. So that was one of the things. But as the years have gone on, I've learned different things. Like at this stage, 13 years on, there was a lesson on the pilgrimage about love, about connecting with, not sexual love, about connecting as humans. Now, 13 years ago, I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's the old love story. See ya, bye. But now, 13 years on, that is the biggest lesson in my life. Now that I've used all the other lessons to build my business, change my relationships, all that sort of stuff, now the love lesson is bigger. So when people ask, what have you learned? Lots of things, but they've changed. Do you see? So lots of seeds were planted, but different things have grown as I've got older. Not wiser, just bolder, really.
Older, wiser, and bolder, and the seeds of that pilgrimage have continued to grow through your life. That's quite the answer, Matt. Thank you for that. How long ago did you write this book, Matt?
2015. And I have to think, the pilgrimage was in 2007, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. Yeah, 2015 I wrote it. Then I followed it up again with How to Be a Buddhist Millionaire, because I wanted to keep pushing what I'd learned. That was the story of the pilgrimage. Then How to Be a Buddhist Millionaire was the story of how you apply that to the actual finances of your life, which
Yes.
you can't ignore. Right? You can't. That's ridiculous to ignore those.
Yes.
There's a Buddhist idea. It's all very well being up in a, being happy up on a hill, but at some point you need to come down and join people. So 2005 was when it first. Yeah, that's right. That's when it first came out.
So the Buddhist Millionaire follows some of those seeds that were planted as they come up.
Exactly.
So the story continues. Wonderful.
Yeah, well, the story is that story, and then it takes those seeds absolutely and applies them to sort of day-to-day living, work, careers, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, then we'll have to get you on again to talk about the Buddhist Millionaire another time. I would look forward to that. Would you suggest to people that they would go on a pilgrimage?
Do you know, I really think if people did nothing else, at least once in their life, to do a version of a pilgrimage, whatever that would be, Mecca, Lourdes, Land's End to John O'Groats, actually. But absolutely, I think it's one of the single most important thing in fact, there was a point where and I might still do it, I just haven't got around to it, where I was thinking of taking groups on a tour of young people when they come out of school, particularly now, right, maybe, but when they come out of school before they go to uni or stuff like that, taking them to somewhere like Shikoku and doing the pilgrimage kind of with them, showing them that route. Yes, is the short answer.
Thanks, Matt. It's so interesting hearing the story of what happens on a pilgrimage. We'll hear more from Matt a little bit later, but now, Ella, what have you got for us?
Now I am going to read a little bit of an extract from a book which actually inspired the author to go on his pilgrimage in Japan. Here is the prologue from Paulo Coelho's The Pilgrimage. And now, before the sacred countenance of RAM, you must touch with your hands the word of life and acquire such power as you need to become a witness to that word throughout the world. The master raised high my new sword, still sheathed in its scabbard. The flames of the bonfire crackled, a good omen, indicating that the ritual should continue. I knelt and, with my bare hands, began to dig into the earth. It was the night of January the 2nd, 1986, and we were in Itatiaia, high on one of the peaks in the Serra do Mar, close to the formation known as the Agulhas Negras, Black Needles in Brazil. My master and I were accompanied by my wife, one of my disciples, a local guide, and a representative of the great fraternity that is comprised of esoteric orders from all over the world. The fraternity known as the Tradition. The 5 of us and the guide who had been told what was to happen were participating in my ordination as a Master of the Order of RAM. I finished digging a smooth, elongated hole in the dirt. With great solemnity, I placed my hands on the earth and spoke the ritual words. My wife drew near and handed me the sword I had used for more than 10 years. It had been a great help to me during hundreds of magical operations. I placed it in the hole I had dug, covered it with dirt, and smoothed the surface. As I did so, I thought of the many tests I had endured, of all I had learned, and of the strange phenomena I had been able to invoke, simply because I had had that ancient and friendly sword with me. Now it was to be devoured by the earth, the iron of its blade and the wood of its hilt, returning to nourish the source from which its power had come. The master approached me and placed my new sword on the earth that now covered the grave of my ancient one. All of us spreading our arms wide, and the master, invoking his power, created a strange light that surrounded us. It did not illuminate, but it was clearly visible, and it caused the figures of those who were there to take on a colour that was different from the yellowish tinge cast by the fire. Then, drawing his own sword, he touched it to my shoulders and my forehead as he said, "By the power and the love of RAM, I anoint you Master and Knight of the Order, now and for all of the days of your life. R for rigour, A for adoration, and M for mercy. R for regnum, A for Agnes, and M for Mundi. Let not your sword remain for long in its scabbard, let it rust. And when you draw your sword, it must never be replaced without having performed an act of goodness, opened a new path, or tasted the blood of an enemy. With the point of his sword, he lightly cut my forehead. From then on, I was no longer required to remain silent. No longer did I have to hide my capabilities, nor maintain secrecy regarding the marvels I had learned to accomplish on the road of the tradition. From that moment on, I was a magus. I reached out to my new sword of indestructible steel and wood, with its black and red hilt and black scabbard. But as my hands touched the scabbard, and I prepared to pick it up, the master came forward and stepped on my fingers with all his might. I screamed and let go of the sword. I looked at him, astonished. The strange light had disappeared, and his face had taken on a phantasmagoric appearance, heightened by the flames of the bonfire. He returned my gaze coldly, called to my wife, and gave her the sword, speaking a few words that I could not hear. Turning to me, he said, "Take away your hand. It had deceived you. The road of the tradition is not for the chosen few. It is everyone's road, and the power that you think you have is worthless, because it is a power that is shared by all. You should have refused the sword. If you had done so, it would have been given to you, because you would have shown that your heart was pure. But just as I feared, at the supreme moment you stumbled and fell. Because of your avidity, you will now have to seek again for your sword, and because of your pride, you will have to seek it among simple people. Because of your fascination with miracles, you will have to struggle to recapture what was about to be given to you so generously." The world seemed to fall away from me. I knelt there, unable to think about anything. Once I had returned my old sword to the earth, I could not retrieve it. And since the new one had not been given to me, I now had to begin my quest for it all over again, powerless and defenceless. On the day of my celestial ordination, my master's violence had brought me back to earth. The guide smothered the fire, and my wife helped me up. She had my new sword in her hands, but according to the rules of the tradition, I could not touch it without permission from my master. We descended through the forest in silence, following the guide's lantern until we reached the narrow dirt road where the cars were parked. Nobody said goodbye. My wife put the sword in the trunk of the car and started the engine. We were quiet for a long time as she carefully navigated around the bumps and holes in the road. "Don't worry," she said, trying to encourage me. "I'm sure you'll get it back." I asked her what the master had said to her. He said 3 things to me. First, that he should have brought along something warm to wear because it was much colder up there than he had expected. Second, that he wasn't surprised at anything that had happened up there, and that this has happened many times before with others who have reached the same point as you. And third, that your sword would be waiting for you at the right time on the right day, at some point on the road that you will have to travel. I don't know either the day or the time. He only told me where I should hide it. And what road was he talking about? I asked nervously. Well, that he didn't explain very well. He just said that you should look on the map of Spain for a medieval route known as the Strange Road to Santiago.
Thank you, Ella, for that evocative reading of the pilgrimage. And now let's go from there back to Matt and his reading of The Hardest Path. Matt, I believe you put together some different sections from your book. Is that right?
Yeah, I've taken some bits from various chapters which kind of give us a little bit of before I went, during, and a very, very special person I met along the way, which I think that not to include him in the reading would just be wrong. So it's a bit of a mix and match from the book, but all from the book.
Fantastic. We're excited to hear it. So this is Mr. Matt Jardine reading from his book, The Hardest Path.
Time and money have been cited as obstacles to human endeavour for as long as humans have had endeavour. The call from within to chase dreams is seemingly forever dampened by economics, schedules, routines, and responsibility. Stand amongst parents in any school playground at either picking up or dropping off time and listen to the silent cacophony, the white noise of unvoiced complaint furrowed across brows, bodies tense in protest against lives lived unfulfilled. If only there was enough time and money, whisper tired eyes, and the life of our dreams would be ours, they suppose. We all love our families, of course, but the longing to be more still permeates. The guilt at striving is not enough to silence the instinct that there is more to life than the endless rounds on this giant hamster wheel of daily chore. Have you ever felt that you were part of something bigger, grander, more meaningful than the day-to-day grind? Words are not enough to describe it, this bigness. Do they even exist for something we can neither see nor touch, but instinctively know is there? I remember my first shoulder rub with this nameless thing. I was around 10 years old, I think. The problem with my memory is that it likes to pigeonhole everything but the present moment into a nostalgic time when I was growing up in our family home. The three clonks on the dining room ceiling from my mum's broom handle muffled through the bathwater where I lay submerged, eyes closed, toasty warm. It was time to get out and come downstairs for dinner. I stood drip drying, draped in 2 towels in front of the antique mirror that filled the whole of the bathroom wall. The mirror was completely steamed with only my outline visible in the fog. As I stood drying, I got a feeling of a flame glowing at my centre. Now, when I say flame and my centre, I'm not really sure what I mean. It just seemed to be somewhere right in my middle. I couldn't see it for real, the image just a certainty in my mind's eye. I couldn't see it more clearly by looking more closely either, like you can't see a sparrowhawk that crosses your periphery on a country walk by squinting harder. It didn't seem strange, or frightening, or particularly poignant. It just felt right. I was certain about it. As time went on, I began to sense that the flame that glowed at my middle burned brightly at the centre of all other things too. The connection made me feel part of all things, alive and together. In contrast, death scared the wits out of me as a child. The thought of it made me tear around the house, trying to escape the images of annihilation inside my head. My parents would have to intercept by holding me close in their arms until the terror subsided. Rare is the person who has never wondered at the thing that sits at the very heart of life. Religion has made its life work to name and proselytize it. Science strives to prove or disprove it. Philosophy loves to boggle minds with theories about it. We all must consider it. Death forces us eventually to search for a meaning to life and to wonder what, if anything, transcends it. Time, money, life after death, the meaning of life. These and many others are the questions that pilgrims ponder. Where did you say you were going? Asked my playground parent buddy Charlie. He waved his son Alfie into class. Shikoku, Japan, I said as I waved to my own. Why? He said. To walk a pilgrimage, the 88, the Hachijuhachi. It's Japan's version of the Camino, I told him. Oh, he said. I could hear his brain cogs whirring, trying to process and formulate an opinion. Why? He said again. I don't know, Charlie. Challenge myself, think about life a bit, just because I want to. Charlie apparently did not approve. He didn't like anything even slightly off kilter. A disapproving stance aimed in our direction has the power to drive us back into the shadows, if we let it. It was a standard tactic for our parents and grandparents' generation, post-Second World War, in a time not yet accustomed to new opportunity. So who's going to look after your two then, while you're off gallivanting, he poked, referring to the care of my 2 young children. They've got a mother, I poked back. I think they'll survive for a month without me. Charlie changed tack. He'd get to me somehow. You know you won't earn while you're away. You're self-employed. Can you afford the time away? Can you afford a trip all the way to Japan? No, Charlie, not really. And all this thinking about life nonsense, what's that all about? I saw him smirk. Charlie was on a roll. Charlie, don't you ever wonder if there's more to life, more than all this? Nothing is more important to me than my Alfie, he concluded. Apparently, that was that. No more to be said. Charlie had spoken. Charlie was not the first resistance I'd faced with my decision to walk the 88, and he certainly wouldn't be the last. That's the funny thing with people. Many don't like to see you trying to better yourself, enjoy yourself, or push on. That's the reason many of us have bought our dreams, desires, and grand plans. But this resistance didn't matter, actually, because even before walking a single step of the pilgrimage, I had already learned its most valuable lesson, that a wholehearted decision founded on passion had started a ball rolling that was impossible to stop. Under my bed, written in a red hardback original that smells the only way antique books can, are the most beautiful words regarding this very subject. W.H. Murray, from his book, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition, confirms to us the magic that emanates from a committed decision with these unbelievable words. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events and issues from the decision raising one's favour, all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. Perfect. How I wish I'd written that. These words are true of decision to climb the Himalayas, to walk pilgrimage in Japan, or of any decision made by anyone, anywhere, to do anything. Not even Charlie could stop me. Of that, I was certain. Buddhists teach that life is a continuous cycle of life and death. Each moment draws to a close, only to be replaced by the birth of another. Beginnings eventually end to free the path for further beginnings. I had been walking several days since beginning the 88 at Yosemite Temple miles before, but my pilgrimage would start anew after I met Hajime-san. Hajime in Japanese means to begin. San is the equivalent honorific to Mr. or Mrs. His name literally translates as Mr. Beginnings. I had reached Temple 14. The pain from my walking boots was unbearable. This did not bode well for the 74 temples still left to visit. My brand new, highly recommended Karamors lay scattered as I relieved my feet of their tyranny. Too heavy, he barked, picking up one of my discarded boots and waving in my face. Why are you here? It's difficult to decipher the intention behind the stoic face of some Japanese. Generations of social hierarchy and politeness, overpopulated land space, the need to protect privacy, and a culture that abhors embarrassment or disgrace have all led to people who give little away through facial expression, the ultimate poker face. I'm here to walk the Hachi-Ju-Hachi. With my limited Japanese, I tried the best I could to explain my intentions to this fierce interrogator. You know Hanyo Shingyo, he said. No, I didn't. I didn't even know what he just asked me. He spotted my confusion. Hanyo Shingyo, he barked. I shook my head in shame, although unsure what evil I had committed. Come, he ordered me to follow. Seemingly, I couldn't refuse. I followed him to the main hall of the temple, skulking behind like a naughty schoolboy. Just before the main altar, he stopped, reached into his backpack, pulled out a Kyohon, a book of sutras, and thrust it in my hand. This is Hanyo Shingyo, why you do Hachi-Ju-Hachi, he said. You read Japanese? Yeah, a bit, I said. His angry face broke briefly into a toothless smile. I bathed momentarily in his silent congratulations, relieved I had said at last something that hadn't angered him. With prayer beads held between clasped hands, he proceeded to chant. I watched him and listened, starry-eyed in admiration at the hypnotic sound. He stopped suddenly. Begin, he ordered. Oh, God, he wanted me to follow along. I could read the Japanese on the prayer book, but not at the speed he was chanting. I began to sweat. With his back turned to me, he continued. Furious expectancy clogged the air. Hanyo Shingyo is the Japanese name for the Heart Sutra. It is one of the most important of the many Buddhist scriptures and makes up part of the liturgy performed at temple altars. It is said that Kobo Daishi, the father of the 88, believed that the sutra's frequent recitation would lead worshippers to enlightenment. I stumbled along with Hajime-san, panicking at his aggressive gestures that coincided with my mistakes. After 3 recitals, it was over. The look he gave me was not one of approval. It suggested he thought he'd chosen to mentor an idiot, one who probably couldn't be helped in this life or indeed the next. Ikemashou, he said, let's go. Off to the next temple we went. My apprenticeship with Hajime had begun, whether I wanted it or not. The whole of the first day that Hajime came into my life was spent perfecting the Hanyo Shingyo. At each of the temples, the training was exactly the same. He would chant, and I was expected to follow correctly. Slowly but surely, under his intense scrutiny, I started to get it. Occasional grunts of approval encouraged me. Regular scorn discouraged error. It never occurred to me that I was blindly following a total stranger through the Japanese countryside. The thought never entered my head. It was as if this was just the way it was meant to be. This man would plant seeds in my mind that are still blossoming today. The days that followed taught me the true meaning and purpose of walking the Hachi-Ju-Hachi. They also taught me life lesson number 3. After first making a committed decision to pursue a goal, and then breaking down the immensity of the task into baby steps, there often comes a point when you simply don't have the knowledge to overcome the next obstacle. It happens to the very best of us. As I followed on after my new leader, the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, sprang to mind. I started to wonder if maybe my meeting with Hajime-san had a little of the providential flavour that W.H. Murray had spoken of in his prose. Had Hajime-san been sent to me? Was it coincidence or divine intervention? In the middle of the day, we stopped at a supermarket to buy lunch. Hajime unloaded his backpack and left it outside in the car park. I kept mine on. What doing? He said, pointing at my backpack. Someone might take it, I answered. Mato-san, leave it here. It was an innocuous order that didn't register until much, much later. I did as he said because I felt I had little choice. It was only much further into the pilgrimage I realized the other essential lesson it was teaching me. Trust. To trust means to let go of fear and the need to control. Paradoxically, letting go is the very thing that seems to ensure security. The simple act of leaving my backpack in the car park while we shopped would play havoc with my mind. But it also began to shake the belief system which my mental chaos fed. Let go was the lesson. Trust was the command. My thoughts trailed back through the years. My daughter, India, aged 3 and in nursery school, had a biting problem. If other children gave her a problem, she bit them. It was the last meeting with the senior nursery staff that left me in despair. India had used up all her chances. She would have to stop, or she would no longer be welcome at Busy Bees, where youngsters learn to grow. Expelled at 3, not the start to life I planned for her. Since the last 2 meetings, I tried everything to get her to stop. Nothing seemed to work. There was nothing further I could do as a parent. It was hard to resign myself to her fate, but the moment I accepted it and relaxed into the difficulties it might present, she stopped her biting stage, literally overnight. Life works like this, it seems. My daughter stopped biting and my backpack was safe. Trust and acceptance are powerful tools. As we walked, I came to learn a little bit about Hajime's life. He had lost his entire family in a car accident sometime before and had been walking the Hachi-Ju-Hachi ever since. When finished, he would start all over. I wondered if the circle would ever end for him. Did his grief grow easier with each rounding of the island of Shikoku? People walk the 88 for a multitude of reasons. I met many along the way, each with different goals. A student on extended holiday wanted to do something spiritual and notable for his CV. A lady in her 20s was praying for the recovery of a sister with ovarian cancer. A salaryman, the name that the Japanese use for office 9 to 5 is in his 50s, was looking to find life meaning beyond the confines of Japanese corporate dictates. The sun started to set, and our day of walking and praying was coming to a close. I wondered where we would stay for the night. On the streets, like proper Henro, said Hajime-san. This meant that we would sleep where sleep found us, as pilgrims, 2 homeless men by any other name. We found the nearest bus shelter. It had chunky pinewood walls, 2 benches and a corrugated roof. I watched him unpack some of all the life belongings he carried with him on his never-ending pilgrimage. Mini gas canister, 2 small tin bowls, cups and packets of dried food provisions. He was going to cook us dinner by candlelight in a bus shelter. With an old-fashioned battery-powered radio playing softly in the corner, we dined. The light of the candle flickered comforting shadows against the walls as billions of stars spotted the vast canvas of sky outside. My eyes grew heavy and ached to close in that lovely, drifting way. I felt strangely at home with this man of the road who was teaching me the ways of the 88. Even so, I silently prayed that he wouldn't kill me in my sleep. The doubts of a neurotic Westerner were not quite walked out of me, not just yet. My painfully rigid back awoke me the next morning. Hard wooden benches have a habit of doing that. Hajime was still asleep, and I was still alive, thank God. I stepped outside to stretch. A new day on the 88. I needed to press on with the miles today. I was falling behind my daily quota. I had to walk the equivalent of a marathon and a half each day to complete the pilgrimage in 30 days. I wouldn't reach my final goal at this rate. I wondered when Hajime would wake. He did eventually. I tried to explain my walking goals with subtlety in a language of which I had only rudimentary grasp. 1 step, Mato-san, was all he would say.
That was really gorgeous, thank you. We're very excited. Where is your book available, Matt?
It's obviously on Amazon. I think it could still be in Waterstones, but 2005, I'm not entirely sure. I know definitely it's on Amazon.
Well, thank you very much for coming on to join us today, Matt, and hopefully speak to you again about your other book.
Thank you so much for having me, Sue.
I can't wait to read the next one now.
.5 Summer Valley FM.